going live now, and so the guests can join as they are, but if you feel free to kind of start prepping the episode as they're coming.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Are we live right now? All right. Buenas, buenas, and half a day, everybody. Oh, I'm glitching out. Uh-oh. Dispensa had to leave and
Dispensa.
rejoin.
Oh no,
There was
half
a
a day, half a day.
glitching, but we are live half a day. Buenas and half a day. Todas Hamzu. And welcome to episode 3 of In Solidarity. Buenas, Chelu. Glad to see you on here.
Hey,
Are
sorry I
we?
was late. One of the joys of live podcasts is when your guest runs late. Uh, I apologize. It's
No worries.
it's 8 p.m. here in Washington D.C. And I just got off another meeting, so it's a long day for me. But it's great to be on, and I'm excited to talk to you.
Yes, si Diyos maasi, Chelu, for making it. I know you have quite an agenda over there yourself, so we really appreciate you joining us today. We also have our Chelu, Andra Samoa. Hello, sister. Thank you also for joining. I see she's out and about, but is still showing up and dedicated. We're so glad to have you on for our third episode of Fanatsu in Solidarity. Trying to see if Maria is, I think Maria had to leave and come back because we are having some technical difficulties right now, but we're trying to figure it out because sometimes the Zoom can glitch in and out. Um, let's see. So, we have a little brief introduction before we commence this episode, this very, very special episode. So, today we are here to talk about the deep sea mining in the Marianas and in the Pacific and the impact it is having on our islands. And after the BOEM leasing doubled in response to over 65,000 comments opposing the mining in the Marianas and over 75,000, I believe, in American Samoa. I had to contact Maria and ask to set up a date for our third episode because I felt like this was such a good opportunity and a good time to platform Indigenous voices regarding these concerns and issues threatening the livelihood of our waters because, as we know it, the ocean plays such a huge part in our culture as Indigenous peoples. So I just wanted to, oh, there, Chelu, Maria, welcome. Welcome back, sis. I hope your computer and your Wi-Fi is working great with us. I just wanted we got started just a little bit in introducing our guests and warming them up to our listeners and our viewers. And I was going over our little brief introduction of what to expect for this episode today. We have two amazing guests on our show to help us talk about these issues. We have Angelo Villagomez and we have Andra Samoa. Thank you guys. We appreciate you. Angela Villagomez is a Chamorro environmental activist and ocean advocate from the island of Saipan, who has been very vocal against the deep sea mining projects in the Marianas. He focuses on indigenous-led conservation, addressing modern threats to our oceans, including habitat loss, fishing, and climate colonialism. Andra Samoa is also an environmental activist and was a member of the American Samoa House of Representatives, who is now the current public policy advisor to the Lieutenant Governor of American Samoa. She is a leader, community volunteer, and an inspiration in our collective movement to educate and advocate for the wellness of our oceans. That being said, we stand with our brothers and sisters in American Samoa and the Mariana Islands in demanding a halt to permitting all deep sea bed mining projects in the Marianas and in the Pacific. So without further ado, all that being said, please join us in giving a warm welcome to our guests here, Angelo and Andra. Woo, Viva! It's gonna be a good, very productive, informative episode. So, I wanted to kind of bounce it back over to you both in case I missed anything in my introduction. If you don't mind, would you like to introduce yourselves in a way that feels the most true to you, including the island you come from, your relationship to environmental justice work, and how you got involved in the work opposing the deep sea bed mining projects? So maybe we
Ladies
can
first, I
start with
insist.
you. Yes, we can start with Andra, and then we can bounce it off to Angelo. Hold on, I think
It looks like she's
your
getting
mic.
off the bus
Oh,
live.
All right, all
Hi.
right. Make sure you step off safe
There we
first.
go.
And then I think her mic might be
Yeah.
off. Chelu, I think your mic might be muted. Let's see
Awesome.
There's a beautiful,
if
Hi,
there's a
Andra,
beautiful
for
tree in the
being
background.
here today. And while juggling many, many things, appreciate both of you for joining us
a
today.
mega hot guest. Yes.
Yes. Andra, oh, there we go. There
Yeah.
she is.
She just needs help unmuting her mic so we can hear her beautiful voice. Um, we still are unable to hear you. I'm so sorry. Are you able to? It's where is the unmute option
Okay,
actually?
is it,
Is it the
are you
microphone? Okay, there it is. There it is.
recording?
So far,
I
this is my favorite podcast I've ever
Testing.
recorded. There's so much going on. It's so exciting. It's like, it's
Okay,
taking an entire village.
can you guys hear
I'm
me? This is
glad.
Andra.
Yes.
Hello? Can you?
Ungan,
Okay,
viva!
yeah, can you hear me? This is Andra.
Yes, Andra, we
Hello?
can hear you. Hello.
Okay, so I'm at the end of the island. We're here for a historical site visit. So with our Samoan Land Commission delegation to find out more about the
Andra, I can
legend.
hear you now.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so I just wanted to update all of you with regards to, for myself, I'm the policy advisor for the governor and the lieutenant governor. With regards to the deep sea mining task force, unfortunately, one of the leaders, co-leader, had to retrieve herself because she's no longer with the government. Her name is Dr. Sabrina Mahuka, and bless her heart, she's worked very hard. One of the things that is being expedited here that is going to happen, no matter how we want to dream as if it's not going to happen, is our three boats have been here in American Samoa, and they are expediting the survey. So, and we feel that it's going to happen there on your side of the woods because unilaterally, without any consent or without any consultation with the United Nations, law of the sea and the ISA, International Seabed Authority, it's a non-issue because it's the United States with a colonial attitude. They will be there soon. So that's what my update is from my side here in American Samoa. Even though we have a moratorium, we have the legislature, we have the governor, we have the congresswoman, it's falling on deaf ears with the policy of the United States disregarding the genealogy and the importance of our will, and also with the deed of cessions. So that's on my side here in American Samoa. Hello?
Yes,
Hello,
sorry, we're here.
Andra. Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
so much for sharing.
and thank you for sharing
Angela
those
Maria, did you have
updates.
anything to say for that before we bounce that to Angelo so we can get his side?
Yeah, I think, just seeing that federal priorities, whether that's, resource extraction or, what Wuhan has been experiencing around defense, and moving forward against widespread community opposition, against leadership speaking out against these projects, just seeing that that question keeps returning of like who is actually being consulted here. And it's just a really a symptom of colonization, of colonialism. And that is sort of how I met Angelo and Andra through work with Right to Democracy, a cross-territorial coalition that seeks to really confront these colonial realities of federal priorities always sort of coming first before genuine security of the homelands. And it's just really makes me think about what we've experienced in Wuhan around the buildup since 2008, with just these steamrolling of various projects that impact our environment, that impact our lands, against the will of the people. And so just as Andra is speaking, it's it's something that we all really have to grapple with. And so, yeah, I am interested to hear from Angelo about sort of what is being done on the federal and international levels around your work with Pacific communities. What are some updates on your?
Sure. So before I jump in about what's going on like federally and internationally, I will just introduce myself. So like folks are like, Villagomez, who is this guy? I've never heard or seen of him before. That's because I have not lived at home for 16 years. I've lived and worked in Washington, D.C. for the last 16 years. Right now I work for an organization called the Center for American Progress, which is it's a think tank. And it's a Washington, D.C. think tank, which is a special kind of institution that really only exists in this city. But there are a couple of other think tanks. And I think I'm the only Pacific Islander who works for a think tank. It's not a career that people from our islands have sought out. And in my current job, I'm kind of like I'm a researcher officially, but I'm sort of like an activist professor who doesn't have to teach classes. So I have my own research interests. I publish scientific papers. I actually just submitted one this week. But I work in a highly political space. So uh, anytime issues around the ocean or indigenous peoples become political, I work with a number of different coalitions around the country and leaders in Washington, D.C. to help navigate some of those issues. So when it comes to deep sea mining, I'm actually a newbie. 12 months ago, I did not work on deep sea mining. Like my focuses were on fishing and climate change and marine protected areas. But the Trump administration issued this executive order last year, which they've issued a lot of these executive orders over the last year and a half. And the way to think about them is they're not laws that the president signs. They're more like memos, and it directs the government to do stuff. And so this particular memo directed the government to find all of the minerals that were under our ocean and to begin to exploit them. And so last summer, they started one of these RFIs for American Samoa, and that was my introduction. And just like Maria said, it was through Right to Democracy, which is an organization that I'm also involved with from the Washington, D.C. side. And it was the members in American Samoa who reached out to Right to Democracy and said, help us gain allies. Like, how can you help us oppose this thing that's happening in our islands? So we started a petition. And our thinking was because of what Right to Democracy does, is we wanted the five territories to raise their voices, because sometimes our voices get drowned out in these discussions, right? So even like with the 65,000 comments that happened for the CNMI and Guam RFI, like how many of those were local, right? How many of those were from the island? So like it was Right to Democracy really wanted to focus on the voices from the territories, and I think our petition had like 2,000 signatures, so it wasn't huge, but it was a good number, and it was, there may have been other issues where the five territories worked together, but I think it may have been the first time. I haven't asked ChatGPT if that's the case. I'm just going with it, but we, the territories came together, and I remember at the time last summer. Uh, we had a webinar, and one of the questions that was asked of the webinar is this coming to the other territories? And I think it was Sheila who said probably, Sheila Babauta. And it turned out to be true, because then, in November, the RFI for Guam came. So Right to Democracy also was involved with the most recent RFI. And that's kind of how I came to get involved in deep sea mining.
Thank you so much, Chelu, for sharing. And I think that just kind of highlights one of the things we like to center around for the theme of In Solidarity, the podcast, is to platform Indigenous voices all around the world, for the diaspora, people who have been born here or have not been here in like 16 years, as you said, but are still doing the work on, our people's behalf to represent us on a global scale. And I think it's very important to show solidarity and to look at other places and, like Right to Democracy and getting involved in all these cross-territorial coalitions to kind of say, hey, we're going through the same things as you are. How can we join forces to uplift each other? Because we are going through the same things pretty much, give or take, with like maybe a few months or year differences between maybe one place knowing or receiving the information first. I know with the deep sea mining, I believe American Samoa received the information prior to Guahan and the Marianas. But nevertheless, I think we received pretty much the same information and the same responses in response to those opposing comments. So I think it's very important work that you are doing, you and Andra. Thank you so much again for being here, for talking about this, for doing the work that you do, because a lot of these things, a lot of our people are fighting on these lines that many of our people back home aren't even aware about. And so we like to use our podcast to bring awareness to the different sectors and categories of activism and advocacy that is happening, to be aware in case, just maybe a couple of viewers might be listening to your stories and be thinking, how can I get more involved in this? And maybe they're more inspired to get out there and learn more, and represent
Yeah,
our
I think,
people on that global scale. What was that?
you know, yeah, I think for this, if you want to be involved in deep sea mining, I think the first thing to recognize is that this is going to be a marathon. And the process that we went through over Christmas felt like a sprint, but that was the first mile of 26. And this is going to be a years long process. And I think we're sort of on step two, and both American Samoa and CNMI and Guam are in the same step right now. So they've done this request for information. It was a bastardized version of an RFI, right? All things being considered, a reasonable human being or a good leader would have taken a look at the responses that they got and said, "Oh, this is not popular. We're gonna change what we're proposing in response to what the American people living in these places want to do." This administration did the opposite of that and doubled it. So like that already, like that's some bullshit, right? So like we'll recognize that that's some bullshit, but there's gonna be a shit ton more bullshit. Excuse me for swearing for your YouTube allows you to swear, but there's more of this coming, right? The next step will be there'll be environmental review. And so the BOEM representatives came out here and they met with our leaders and they said, "Oh, we're going to do all this, we're going to do all that." But out of the other side of their mouth, they're changing the rules in the middle of the game. There's another public comment period going on right now where BOEM is proposing that they wouldn't have to do all of the legally mandated outreach to territories and to governors and local communities. And so like out of one side of their mouth, they're saying, "Oh, we're going to reach out to you, we're going to work with you, we're going to make sure this benefits you." At the same exact time, they're looking to undermine those processes. And don't trust what they say, trust what they do, and like we're paying attention to what they're doing. But again, this is going to be a marathon, and so it's about networking at this moment. It's about gaining allies. It's about coordinating. It's about sharing information, and so but in CNMI and Guam, there's different groups who are leading it. On Guam, you've got Protehi Guahan, you've got the Micronesia Climate Change Alliance. Up on Saipan, we've got Friends of the Mariana Trench, NMC, our Commonwealth are very engaged with this. They're all on social media. Follow those social media accounts. Some of the different groups have email lists. Sign up for those email lists, and trust those groups to share information, to keep you up to date, and to tip you off when your voice needs to be raised. And it's important to remember sometimes it can feel like it's the federal government, and you don't think about like the intricacies and the relationships in Washington, D.C. But what's happening in DC is just as complicated as what's happening back at home, right? But there's politics involved, there's individuals, there's different ideas. This is a Trump thing. Like we're in a Trump moment right now. And if you've ever read The Art of War, you need to know your enemy. And I'm not saying that the federal government is our enemy, but we need to understand them. We need to understand where they're coming from. And so I also invite people to do that. Like figure out what BOEM is, what agency is in BOEM, who are the leaders, the political leaders. What did they do before they had this job? Were they lobbyists before this? And that will just help you understand what's going on. But this will be a long process. And it's important to also remember that this administration makes a lot of threats. They make a lot of promises. But some of the stuff that they've done has been very, very unpopular. And they've backed off the most unpopular things. You may remember a year ago when they first came into power with the Doge, and they were, Elon Musk had his chainsaw and he was claiming that he was going to cut federal spending and cut all these projects. Like that was not popular. Like they cut a lot of projects that the American people depended on, and Doge just silently went away. Like it's no longer a thing. It's gone. You've also seen you probably haven't seen ICE in the news as much lately, right? Because of what they were doing in Minneapolis and the protests, wildly unpopular. They murdered two people in the streets. So they fired the secretary because it was like they were doing a terrible, terrible job on it. And that's what I encourage folks back at home to do with this. Like, if you're raising hell, go out there and raise hell. Like we want them to know we don't like this. Our people don't like this. This is selling off our waters basically to benefit three companies. It's not going to benefit our people. And they're not just doing this in Guam. They're doing this with oil and gas in the continental United States, and people are figuring this out. This administration ran on promises that they were going to help American people, and they're not doing that. They're selling off the country to these corporations. They see our ocean as just a bunch of assets to be sold, and for our people, the ocean is so much more than that.
Very well said, Chelu. And I want to thank you for everything you said, but most especially kind of mentioning the dismissal of all of the hundreds of thousands of comments
Mhm.
opposing the mining, and how you said it's like the federal government is not our enemy per se, but just taking, I guess, the concept of the phrase know your enemy is kind of know who we are. Kind of sounds like they're not like they are an enemy when I say like we are up against, basically.
Yeah,
Because if these forces are not with us, the only other possible explanation is you must be, not with us, which
definitely.
is synonymous with against us. And so
Yeah.
um I wanted to kind of touch a little bit on the dismissal, as well as kind of some of the environmental risks or the concerns, even if you are aware of that, or even you want to talk about policy concerns and the politics of that. But before we do that, I would like to check in with our Chelu Maria to see if she has any reflections on that.
Hi, yeah, I'm so sorry. My internet is going in and out, so I hope it holds on here. Um, but yeah, I'm just wanted to talk a little bit about for those who are maybe tuning in who don't know really how close to home this is. When we say like it's double the size now, about 69 million acres near the CNMI and Guahan. So when we think about how many miles offshore of Guam this is going to be or proposed to be taking place, it's about 46 miles offshore of Guam, 57 miles offshore of Saipan in the CNMI, which is even closer than the previous area. Um, and and then when we look at American Samoa, Andra actually messaged me that she's also having connectivity issues and is wanting me to WhatsApp her. So to WhatsApp anyone in here because of my spotty connection. But I just wanted to also plug that the National Marine Sanctuary of American Samoa and the Rose Atoll Marine National Monument, which are federally protected waters. Um, and, there's rich biodiversity there. It's sacred to the people, the Native peoples. And, these are areas that are going to be impacted by the mining. And so, like Angelo said, just echoing, coming out, showing force. If you're like, if you can't make the protest times, if you need to like hold your own, even, we need to like figure out ways to join together. And the for example, Right to Democracy does cross territorial meetings, which is something that I feel has been really productive and a really a great space to be part of as somebody who's been doing this work for a little over a decade, working locally, even going out to DC recently, just now having this new network of cross-territorial organizers and kind of figuring out how can we work together, how can we create a task force, like a cross-territorial task force. So if any of this interests you, definitely reach out and we can just brainstorm together and strategize together. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to plug how close to home this really would hit. And mining, just kind of looking back at deep sea mining done in the 70s, for example, like tests on deep sea mining have been conducted decades ago. And in these areas, the places that have been mined still have not returned to their normal state. And about 45% of marine life in the deep sea relies and they live on these potato sort of shaped nodules. And this will have lasting impacts. This really will have lasting impacts. And I wanted to have Andra kind of speak on some of what's going on around Rose Atoll, and we'll see if we can get her back on the call shortly. But I'll pass it over to you, Heaney, if you want to jump into the next question.
All right. So I'm kind of thinking, I would like to jump in a little bit towards what this means in the context of the decolonization movement, and kind of going over one of the things we talked about, Chelu, before this meeting, of what we wanted to talk about, of like what does it mean to see these decisions being made on our behalf on an international and federal level, without direct engagement within our Pacific communities. So, I think, Angela, I would like to ask if we would like to go back to that, if we can, the question of what are some of the environmental risks our people should know about, or what feels most important for our people to understand about what's at stake at right now, considering the dismissal of tens of thousands of opposing comments.
Um, I mean, for the dismissal of the comments, the first thing that we're gonna do is we're not gonna shut up about those comments. Like, whenever this comes up, the first thing out of our mouth is we're gonna say, 65,000 people said that they're opposed to this. Um, and I'll echo also what Maria said. Like, as big as the ocean is very small. I was in Easter Island a couple of years ago, and I was out with a fisherman, and he was telling me, "Oh man, yeah, we're always picking up trash from New Zealand," and like it's almost like he summoned it by saying that, because he pulled the boat over to a piece of trash that was floating in the water just then, and he pulled out this big hunk of plastic, and it had the name of a New Zealand fishing company on it. And so it may sound like 50 miles is really far away, but on the ocean, 50 miles is nothing. Like it's right next door. Um, that's about as far as Rota, right? And on the north end of Guam, on a clear day, you can see Rota. So you will be able to see from Retidian Point, you can see Rota on a clear day. And you will also be able to see to the northwest the areas that are open to deep sea mining now. And it's incredibly close. And I guess I would put the damage sort of in two categories. The first type of damage is going to be the direct damage from mining, right? So these are whether it's the nodules, which are the potato things that Maria was talking about, they're in these nodule fields, kind of like rocks on the bottom of the ocean, or if it's part of these ferromanganese crusts, where it's actually they're ripping up the actual seafloor, and taking sort of like the top couple of inches, like that causes physical damage to the seafloor. And things live there. Like sometimes it's things that we haven't discovered yet, but all the science when these research vessels go down and visit the Mariana Trench, they discover new species all the time. So that's sort of the primary damage. And then the secondary damage is when they bring all of this stuff up to a boat, they process it, and then they put a lot of it back into the ocean. And that's where these plumes come in. And so if you've ever seen like I think you see this on the southern end of Guam, when it rains a lot and the ocean turns red, and that smothers the coral reefs, and it smothers and depending on how bad the rain is, it can go out pretty far in the ocean. They're going to do that, but with minerals and on an industrial scale from the bottom of the ocean. And the science says that those plumes might be able to go pretty far. And these are going to be mining tailings, so they're going to be chemicals that have been added to these things. So it's pollution, but it's also blocking out the light from the water, and causing all sorts of problems in the entire water column. And this has not been done on an industrial scale anywhere in the ocean. Uh, but a reasonable person can just sort of say, this sounds like a bad idea, right? Um, and it's right by our shores. 50 mile if things float in the ocean, man. So if it sounds like it's far, but it's on both sides of our coasts, and it sounds like it's going to be problematic.
Yeah, I definitely agree with kind of like that out of mind, out of sight, out of mind perception that many of our people have, where, they're thinking like 40 some 50 miles in the ocean is, oh, I don't really see that from my house, on the hill. But when you think about it, those waters eventually do drift to our shores, which you can see. And so whatever is happening out there, eventually we will kind of see and the consequences of that sooner or later. And the closer it is and the more they double down, it's looking more like sooner rather than later. Um, so it's incredibly disheartening to hear all of this going on without our consent, even as we publicly oppose and protest against the mining in our oceans. It's kind of just like seeing Boeing and the federal government look at us and say, looking at the thousands of comments and being like, only out of all of you, maybe just 100 or so were unique or original, right? Let's say
Yeah.
that. Already I feel this undertone of undermining our people's value in the scheme of like expressing our opinions and having them heard and mattered. And then out of those 100, some only like less than that number even so were quote unquote substantive.
Yeah.
And that is what kind of I've been reflecting on for the past week or so, is kind of who are these entities to determine what is substantive and what isn't. And it kind of brings us back to the conversation of our colonial status
Yeah.
and the powers that we have in a geopolitical setting, and when it comes to these political issues regarding what we can and cannot have a say in, and how they respect us as a territory, as an asset, and looking, like you said, looking at our oceans from an exploitive kind of perspective rather than the way that our people see it. We're very connected. It's such a contrasting um, narrative between like Boehm and the Trump administration versus us. We are actually feeling the impact of it right now as we speak. So, um, actually going into that, I wanted to ask also how you feel your identity and upbringing and relationship to your island or your heritage and who you are shapes the way that you approach your advocacy and policy.
Well, it's home. Home is home. Home will always be home. And I hope to return home someday. I own property on Saipan, and like that's the dream. Uh, Man, you asked like 17 questions in that one question. There's a lot to respond to there. Um, so home is home. Like that's the first thing I'll say. The second thing I will say is you can't give up. Like you don't give up on home. Regardless of what happens, we have to live with the outcome. So if we get what we want, we live with it. If we don't get what we want, uh, we have to live with the outcome. And so I think it's better to be in the room, and to push our opinions constantly. As a territory, and this is a controversial statement in the Northern Mariana Islands, but we are a territory owned by, but not part of the United States. We do not have the same rights as American citizens living in the States, right? We don't have representation. We don't have voting representation in the House, which is what matters. We don't have representation in the Senate, and we don't vote for president because we don't have what's it called? The college. I'm blanking on the name of the electoral. We don't have electoral college votes, right? So like we are negotiating from a weakened position. That doesn't mean that we are powerless. There are things that we can do. Now, let me tell you what the law says. The law says that the ocean is owned by all Americans. We are Americans. Um, the United States Exclusive Economic Zone, which is the all American waters, East Coast, West Coast, Alaska, Hawaii, 10% of all US waters surround Guam and the Northern Mariana Islands, right? So we by area, we are 10% of the ocean people in the entire country. And we demand to be in those rooms where those decisions are made. So how do you do that? Well, some you fight. And some of this is a political fight. And I know there's a question in the chat about, are the CNMI and the Guam workers are the leaders working together? Slightly differently. I know that they're communicating, and I'm sure that they would say that they are working together. But our government leaders play a role in coordinating with the federal government on how to manage our waters. But as citizens, we also play a role. And we can also reach out to BOEM, and there was also a question in the chat about what is BOEM. BOEM is the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, and it's an agency within the Department of Interior. So Interior has the national parks, the National Wildlife Refuges, Insular Affairs. BOEM is one of the other agencies, and they manage oil drilling and now deep sea mining. But even as citizens, we can go to BOEM and we can tell them what we think, because they are supposed to respond to us, because you own the ocean, I own the ocean, we own the ocean, and it's our local government who manages it on our behalf, right? So Guam is managing the nearshore waters, the local government, but they're doing it for us. And it's the same thing with the federal government. The federal government does not own the ocean. The federal government is managing the ocean on my behalf and your behalf, and my voice and your voice matters. And if they're not, if they're not going to listen to our elected officials, if they're not going to listen to me, we can go find allies. So there are other senators, and there are other House members of representatives, and there are other influential nonprofit organizations, and there are other influential organizations like the American Bar Association took a position on this, and they submitted a letter. And so, just to bring it back to, we're the ones who have to live with this. So we cannot give up. Like, we have to stay engaged in this. But we can go out there and we can make our voices even louder by working with people who hold power. And right, so this is a Trump administration thing, right? The Democrats will have different issues, right? So the Democrats tend to be, they're going to be more interested in monuments and sanctuaries. And our community also has concerns about that, and that's valid. But we have about 2.5 years to stop this. And if we can stop it or slow it down in 2.5 years, it'll go away for a while. We'll still have to deal with the military. We'll still have to deal with Endangered Species Act, critical habitat. We'll still have to deal with monument management plans. I guarantee you there are efforts right now to sell our waters to foreign fishing vessels. I promise you, like, I know about this. So there's all of these interests in our waters, and it can be overwhelming. But if our community is not going to be the ones to get involved and to fight this and to gather allies, who else is going to? Right? This is part of in Hawaii, what's the word? Kuleana. You have rights, but you also have responsibilities. And so, we talk about Indigenous rights, but, getting engaged in these issues is also an Indigenous responsibility.
Zizo is Masi Chelu, and I definitely agree. It is a collective effort. I mean, we have elected officials, but how much power do they have, right? With our political status, we can only go so far and so much to have everything that we worked up to and to that point completely dismissed if it doesn't kind of pander to the interests of the federal government or the military. We are coming up on the 11-minute mark in about 15 minutes. We have some time. Wanted to bounce it back a little bit to Chelu Maria because I know she is having some technical difficulties, Dispensa. Um, but I wanted her to kind of also go over a little bit of the chat questions that we had Miguel send here in the Zoom. So Chelu, I think so Angelo pretty much went over what is Boehm and leaders of the CNMI and Guam working together that comment. But if you would like Maria to maybe talk about if you know about if there's any real economic benefit for the islands or even this one commenter said, I saw the post talking about our fish are disappearing. Will the deep sea fishing make things even worse? Just the idea of it scares me so much. And I agree with you, commenter. All of this is scary to think about, but just thinking about the wildlife down there that are not used to these conditions. And a lot of these, the wildlife that are going to be the most affected that are down there in like thousands of meters deep are not used to this kind of activity happening. And if I'm not mistaken, the nodules that they are trying to mine and extract take 1,000 or so years to reform and to grow back, which means any of the fauna of the life living down there, depending on these nodules as a habitat, won't have a home for another 1,000 years. So it's kind of like I seen a study where they were scientists were doing kind of like a time test to see how long something stays on there. So I think they made like these tracks on the bottom of the seabed floor. I'm not sure where. It might have been somewhere in the coast of Hawaii, but
Clar-
it could be wrong.
It was close. Yeah, it was the Clarion-Clipperton Zone. It's the area between Hawaii and California.
Yeah. So, and there was a study and an experiment where scientists made a slight disturbance, like tracks, on the seabed floor, and then they came back 70 years later, and it looked barely untouched or different at all. If you can take a before and after picture to where it looked like maybe not 70 years. I'm sorry, maybe I
It
might be
was 40
wrong.
years.
20,
It was 40
40,
years.
40 years. Okay. Still a long time. But that's just kind of like to give some context of like the scales we are talking about on just how much of an impact these deep sea mining projects and practices will be affecting our oceans and how long we feel those repercussions. So, Chela Maria, would you like to go over anything of one of the questions that we have in the chat before our closing remarks?
Yeah, I think you posed some of them. I'm just opening up the screenshot now because I was kicked out of here. But I'm just having internet issues. So do you mind just go ahead and jump and popping that first question off to Angelo while I just get things together here?
Yeah, so
Sure.
I can talk about the fishing. So, yes, this will probably impact offshore fisheries. And the offshore fisheries for the most part is tuna. Um, the number one threat to fish usually though is actually fishing, and that's a controversial thing to say, but which is why most governments have some combination of fisheries management and marine protected areas, and I also recognize that that is controversial. Um, but yeah, like this is think of it as like a one of those Jenga towers where you're pulling things out, uh, and you know how many of those blocks of wood can you pull out before the whole ecosystem collapses? And that's kind of what's happening, right? Because you're dealing with you have fishing pressure, you have climate change pressure, you have military pressure, and now you're adding deep sea mining pressure on top of that. And at what point does everything just collapse? And the answer is we don't know, but seems highly likely that with all of this pressure, it's a lot in Guam. Like a lot of communities, everyone's dealing with climate change, right? There are fisheries all over the world. But between the military activities and then adding industrial mining on top of that, and then there are pushes to allow or to have, because we don't really have, it's already allowed, but to have industrial scale fishing off our shores using these long line boats, probably most likely. That'll just put even more pressure on the fish population. So, yeah, I mean, like that's the threat here is it's the loss of natural resources. Um, and then, if I could, there's also a question there about does American Samoa have a better chance to resist this than we do? And the answer is they're kind of in the same boat. But the thing that we need to do is we need to lock arms with them. And there are now communities in Alaska that are dealing with this. An RFI closes tomorrow, and I believe there's already tens of thousands of comments there. Knowing how they responded to our two RFIs, I think the writing is probably on the wall already about how they're going to respond to that one. And they'll be equally unhappy. But there are lawmakers with real power in Alaska. They have two senators, and we should connect with them. The leadership in Hawaii is also very concerned about deep sea mining. They're not trying to mine the exclusive economic zone of Hawaii, but there's this area to the east of Hawaii called the Clarion-Clipperton Zone, and the Trump administration is fast tracking mining in those places. And so, this is an opportunity for there to be Pacific-wide opposition. And again, the leadership in Hawaii has real power because they have senators and they have real power in the Senate to slow these things down and hold the president to account. And so those are the sorts of relationships that we should be forming, and those are the sorts of discussions that we should be having.
Chela Maria, did you have any reflections on that before we go to our closing remarks? Oh,
Hey,
right
we
as I
lost
said that,
her.
she disappeared. Oh man. Oh, I really wanted to get her thoughts on it because I know she's been dealing with technical difficulties, but I really appreciate her just the resiliency, just coming back and it's um let's
And
see
the
if we can.
flexibility, the flexibility of our host just rolling with the punches. People popping in, popping out, coming
Right,
late.
right,
You're
right.
like you're crushing it.
Thank you. Thank you. It speaks to the resiliency of our people. You knock us down, we're gonna come back 10 times more,
Yeah.
10 times stronger. Um, all right, let me just give a couple more seconds, and if not, we can go to I do have a last question for our closing remarks, as we do have about 6 minutes on the clock left. Um, let's see. So, I was speaking, just hearing everything that you have been speaking about. First of all, I just want to thank you so much for your time again. This has been a little technical, wanky episode, but the material that we've been covering, the perspectives, the stories, they mean so much in the context of this conversation. And as you know, like this line of work that you are involved with comes with a lot of kind of, I don't want to say pushback, but more of like it can affect a person depending on how long you've been doing this and depending on, of course, how much you are involved in it. I believe that it does affect us on a personal level. Just talking about these issues, and it can be extremely disheartening to acknowledge the reality of the systems that we've been born into. So, how do you process the emotions that come up with what you do in a way that allows you to keep going? And if you would like to close it off with that and any words of advice you'd like to give to those tuning in who want to support Indigenous-led spaces or who may feel a little bit disheartened by what's going on, if you want to kind of touch on a little bit of that, feel free.
I used to drink a lot. Uh, I don't drink anymore. But that I'm joking a little bit, but no, I used to drink a lot. And now it's more of like I'm a little bit older. I got a little bit more gray hair. Um, I find solace probably two things. I was a runner when I was a young man. And I love like I can just go run for 5 miles like a gazelle, just like running away from the leopard. And like that is a great emotional release for me is just to run. And uh if you look at some of my pictures over the years, I don't run for a lot of times, but like right now I'm running. So the other thing I do is I learned in my 30s I started playing the ukulele. Because all my brothers are very musical. And like one of them is like a semi-professional guitar player and singer. But I was always the nerd. Like I liked books and learning, and I was good at school. And it just like I wasn't good at sports. I just ran. I didn't like really play sports. And I wasn't really good at music. I wasn't like the cool kid. They were the cool kids. But I picked up ukulele about 10 years ago. And that's been a great joy in my life. And I love learning how to play a new chord. Like it sounds silly, but like learning a new chord takes like a month almost. And then, or I hear a song, and I really love 60s and 70s rock. And I'll hear a song on the radio and I'll think, oh, how can I play that on the ukulele? And I look up the chords and I practice it. And it brings a lot of joy. Um, for I'm going to bring attention to this poster that I have right here. It says Protehe Itasi. This was made by Jillian Dueñas, so you should follow her on Instagram. She's an artist. She put that up in December, I think, when this was just kicking off. And I messaged her and I said, I love that. How can I get a copy? And she sent me one. And she's actually going to be the featured artist at a conference that I'm holding in June. The conference is called Upwell. And I'll drop the registration link in the chat after this. But she's going to come and she's going to do art in real time and talk about how she uses art as for activism. Um, and I think it's things like that. So I spend my days writing memos. Like I'm an academic. I write nerdy things. I go to science conferences and I give talks on science papers and I write science papers. But the thing that really gets buy-in from people is art. And it's things like this, but it's also music and it's dance. And that is such a big part of our identity and our community. And there's so much beauty in that. And I think, the more we connect our identity to our love for the ocean, and it's not going to be a boring academic who's going to convince the people to stop this. It's going to be the person who writes that song, who the person who makes that beautiful art piece that makes people cry because it's like it's that strong emotion that really that gets people to understand because you come to our islands and like I've known whether you're from Saipan, Chamorro, Carolinian, Filipino, Black, whatever. If you're from there, if you're born there, it's home for the rest of your life, right? Right? You fly away and it's home. But even for people who come to our islands and spend 2 years or 10 years, like our islands and our people become a special part of their identity, right? And like I see them here in DC, like they'll come for a visit, and the time that they spent with our people is the best time of their entire life. And that's really something special. It's something that we have, and it's something really to be proud of. And it's that connection that we have to each other that is going to be the thing that's going to get us over this hump. That's the thing that's going to oppose the military expansion on our islands. That's the thing that's going to stop deep sea mining, and that's going to be the thing that we use to protect our ocean.
Beautifully, beautifully said. And as a musician, artist, creative myself, I really resonate with everything that you just said. I have always been a firm believer that, the gifts that we have they're there for a reason, and with our people it has played such a huge role in our history to just have a creative outlet to explore the spirituality of what it means to be indigenous through these different artistic mediums. And we may not have a chat to put that in because after this one I think the live chat will end, but you can
Okay, but it's on
probably
YouTube.
send the Upwell registration link. I
I'll
think
send it
that's
to you.
what you were saying. Can send it
Or
to
just follow
me
it.
and I
All
can
right.
yes. I will
It's on
connect
all
with
my
you on
social
that
media
and then
too.
we can repost that on our socials and then I can also send it
Great.
to Miket for the Fanatsu. And he said Hunga and I could put it on the comments for the streams. Yes. So we got you
Yeah.
on that. And
Oh,
without further ado, or with that being said, it is 11:01. We have reached the end of our podcast time. Chella Maria, I think she is out for the day. I would have to call her back. It's probably her Wi-Fi. But we're gonna end the session here. Thank you so much again for joining and Dispensa again for all the technical issues. I know we were going to have Andra speak a little bit. Unfortunately, she was also experiencing some technical difficulties. But still representation that matters and that counts. So yes, Sainama Asi, Todos Hamzu, everybody listening, tuning in home, wherever you are at. Thank you for your questions and engagement. We stand in solidarity with the people in the Pacific and in the Marianas against this deep sea mining project. And for more information on any of the things that we've talked about, you can find it on the Finatsu podcast, Instagram, as well as where can they follow you, Chelu, on Instagram if you want to shout out your socials?
I've got a good. It's Tautasi.
Tao Tao Tasi. Tao
Yeah,
Tao
people of
Tasi.
the ocean.
TaoTaotasi for those listening
Yeah,
who may not
that's on
be aware.
Instagram, LinkedIn, all that stuff. I'm
All
even on
right,
TikTok
there we
now.
have it.